So before we get into it, I thought I'd give you a quick recap on how we got that plenum back together. So first of all, mark out all your spot welds, then go through that process of drilling them all out, and there's plenty in it, but don't forget the brackets that are in behind where he's drilling there now. And then once you get all those spot welds out, the bits and pieces will come off. Now if you want to see all this in greater depth, the last episode will show you that, but I thought I'd just do a recap because we've pretty much got it all together in this episode. So that top comes off and you can see all the muck in there. Clean that up with a strip disc, just a Scotch-Brite on the grinder, and then POR 15 on both sides to seal it up. And you can brush that on, no need to get the spray gun out. And then we use some Sika urethane across the front edge. So if you want the in-depth version of all of that, just have a look on the last episode. Back on the job again. So I haven't had much of a chance to get back on the van. So Darren's here for a couple of days, and I've just got him. We're going to put the top area back on this plenum so that it's nice and secure, because the Camaro's coming today. Did I just say that word? The muscle car's coming today. So what I want to show you is with the plenum, when you go to remove this, I missed out on it because Darren was too quick. This little part here fits in there, and it's part of that rail. But to be able to remove this, you need to take this, we cut this off, and to do that we cut it twice. So this little bit here, so that we can then take this off of there, and we've just got that tacked together now, so we'll weld that up. So that's got to get welded back onto the rail and then plug welded onto here from the underside. So we'll drill some holes in there, plug weld that on and weld that back together. And then once that goes back on, this one here will fit back on there. We'll line the spot welds up like that. So that puts all that strength back into there. And then once that's on, this big piece here fits up on here. So once again, we'll line up those spot welds. So we'll line these spots up here, and then we'll re-weld that back on, probably a little bit nicer than what the factory had. And then there's two more pieces that go on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this with the epoxy. I'm just going to paint it on with a brush because, you know, time is everything. So I'm going to paint all the bits that are covered up when these go on just with a brush, and then that'll enable us to put all the strength back into it, because it's probably going to sit for a little while we get started on this next car. So we'll get on with that and show you how it comes together. So there it is now in place. So spot welded on the underside, the copper based weld through primer we're using there as well. So clean everything up, seal it up, and then you can start talking about sealing it up. Here we are with epoxy. So this is the Vibrance epoxy urethane from PPG, and you can brush this on, so I don't put any thinner with it. All those panels have been deoxidined and cleaned, and then we just brush that on because it's going to get a sand before we go to the next stage anyhow. This really is just to look after it while it's sitting around waiting for us to get on to the next part. So the next stage now, this is the top hats. So they're available new, but we're able to salvage the ones that came off. So we do sell the replacement ones. And because we've drilled the spot welds out, we're now in a position to plug weld back through those holes. We just use a little wire brush to clean up in the hole, MIG weld them in, plenty of heat, make sure you get good penetration. It's a bit hard to get a clamp in there, so he's actually just got one Tech screw holding it down nice and tight, and then we'll take that out in a minute and weld up the hole from the screw. Bit of air, because remembering that on the other side of that it's all been painted. So sometimes you just got to use a little bit of gentle force to push things back into place. If it won't go in, or you can't, you could use a screw again just to pull that up so that you can get it in position so it's nice and tight. Remembering all this is structural. Now because we've got some of this paint mixed up from previous, it's pretty good as long as you put something over the top of the lid there so that it's not open to the air. It'll last most of the day. And once we ground up those welds, just a bit more epoxy to seal it up before the next layer goes on. So this is a 40 grit flapper and just a sanding disc. Just a matter of knocking those down, and then you'll see him in a minute run backwards and forwards just to clean it up, and then we'll reseal it again with epoxy. So these particular plates are quite heavy, they're about 1.6 mil, so you can afford what looks like taking a bit off there, but it's sort of just flattening it out, making it look nice. So just one more small plate now to go back on the top. So we just line these back up where they were from the factory. Sometimes they're not real straight, but we'll get all of that done, and now we'll just go ahead and actually paint the whole thing and make it look nice and tidy. So that's pretty much a done deal for the plenum. So we've got all those brackets and all back on. Just give it a coat of the epoxy with a brush because that'll all get sanded, and I've still got some tidying up to do on it, but I really wanted to seal it all up so that it can sit for a little while. I'm going to try and get back to it, but I need to get this muscle car ready for some primer. So as I bring it to you, it might be like this one, it might be a bit short, but it'll be up to date and what we're in the process of doing. And hopefully once we get the Camaro underway, we can get back onto it and be a little bit more consistent with what we're doing and work our way through and start getting it ready so that we can put it into some primer and get some paint on it, get it on the road.